Folks, welcome to another wonderful fireside chat with our friends here at Good Time. A good morning, a good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is watching and listening to this show. We've got a really fantastic topic to discuss today on the back of an amazing report that Good Time have produced. If you haven't seen this report, by the way, I strongly recommend you check it out. I think we'll share it with you sort of in the email afterwards, but we'll ping it into the chat as well because I think you should take a look at it. A really great interactive on hiring trends for 2026. And we've got a wonderful panel to discuss some of the main insights that have come through that report. And that's the topic of the show today. So, folks, just wanted to give you a quick sort of run through. Obviously, this is a Zoom webinar, so you should be familiar with how all of this works. I don't think the chat is working for everyone here, but no worries. The Q&A is. So if you have any comments that you want to make to us, do make it in the Q&A function down there. And be sure to use that function for any questions you have, either on the report or during the talk. We're going to grab those questions and answer them towards the end of the show. Okay, let's get on with it. Let's look. Firstly, let's do some intros. Let's go left to right as I see it. So Kyle, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hey everybody, my name's Kyle and I am the founder of Kyle & Co. I have one of the coolest jobs in the world. Not as cool as yours, Hung, but close. I am an industry analyst, so I get to study innovation cycles and the world of HR tech and transformation and help us close the gap between innovation and adoption. And I'm really excited to dig into some research that somebody else has put together for a change.
Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant to get your analytical views on this topic, Kyle. So fantastic stuff. We have Arion Moon here as well. Arion, great to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, definitely. Arian Moon, CEO and co-founder of Good Time. Excited to be here. We put hiring insights report on an annual basis. This year we did something super cool. I was playing with it for hours last night. There's actually a chat bot on the website that you can actually interact with and ask any question that you have, and it'll give you the gist of what you're looking for from the report. So super excited about what the report is all about. And yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And we have Manjuri Senior here as well. So Manjuri, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hey, Manjari here. I actually have an expertise in building and driving people strategies across execution at scale for organizations like Zalando, Accenture, OLX, and now Miro. And I love to always bring back learnings into the community and learn with all of you. So that's me.
Fantastic stuff. So by the way, folks, these are three people you definitely want to be following on LinkedIn. They're very active and high value posters over there. Your knowledge and intelligence in the market will improve simply by following these folks. So make sure you go ahead and do that. Okay, let's just do a quick run through over I guess the agenda here. We've done the welcome and introductions. We're going to go roundtable pretty shortly. And it's going to be sort of really pulling out four main sort of threads that we've taken from this report. And it's basically, I mean, the 4 points that we want to be making is number one, there is a discernible gap between the elite performing TA teams and kind of everyone else. So it's almost like a polarization in terms of performance. What are the characteristics behind that are common to those organizations that seem to be leading the way? This is not to shame anybody. We're all trying to improve. It's a continuous improvement process. But you know what? If there are organizations that seem to have learned a few lessons, why don't we share those lessons around? So first part of this show is going to be the first insight, shall we say, is going to be that the performance gap is real. How exactly are sort of the elite TA teams doing differently from others? A second point we want to pull out is something which I really love the term of, even though I don't like the idea of, but this is that scheduling is an operational tax on talent acquisition. So in other words, just the simple act of booking a meeting or booking an interview on aggregate over the course of the year, over the course of all of the departments and all of the roles you're recruiting for, all of those minutes add up, and those add up to a drag or a tax, which really slow you down. Let's dive into that. Let's explore exactly how that manifests in terms of hiring performance, and hopefully we can learn some lessons that you can take away and improve on straight away. Third point, super interesting, and this is the role of AI agents. AI agents, are they co-workers or are they becoming infrastructure? So in other words, are AI agents now so ubiquitous that whenever you're interacting in the digital process, the chances are you'll be connecting with an AI agent. At this point, they are become part of the infrastructure of your recruiting process. What does that mean? How does it sort of what does it mean to us as recruiters, and how do we interact with these ubiquitous AI? And finally, we're going to be talking about trust and resilience. How do we sort of deal with this kind of erosion of trust that AI has significantly contributed to? This is on both sides. This is on the sides of employers to candidates with the rise of candidate fraud. And this is on the side of candidates, when they're looking at such a tough job market and seemingly huge hurdles that they have to go through. How do we communicate that we're a real business with real jobs and really have their care at heart? So those are the four things we're going to pull out. We're going to be having a great discussion on each of those. Hannah, I'm sure, is going to keep us sort of well time stamped and time checked on this. So we'll rattle through each of those in turn. So, okay, I think we can go straight into the next point, I think. We're going to be talking about, oh yeah, by the way, we talked about Q&A, just a quick one. Use the Q&A feature either to chat with us or to add any questions that you want the team to answer. Okay, let's go to the first one. Performance gap is real. I probably want to go to you, Manjuri, on this because you're an operating head of function with actually, I think, the largest, the longest title in the industry, don't you? Like, can you give us your full job title, please? I think this would be an interesting one for us to chew
Yeah,
over.
that's pretty interesting. So that's VP of HR and Global Head of GTM Org Success and People Partners. I actually like the part that it has org success in it because usually HR is supposed to be this, support and service partner, but here we drive real dollar value with, be it from end-to-end hiring, retention, etc. You can literally see the value in the numbers there. So I love that, although it's long, but I love that.
I keep it. Don't allow anybody to consolidate that sort of job title. I think that's a Scrabble winner if ever we need one. Okay, let's talk about this. So you've worked for a number of big companies, some of the biggest companies in Europe and elsewhere and globally, with huge demands that are unique to those businesses. What do you think, when you see sort of a function miss their hiring goals, what is the first thing that you'd look to investigate there? I mean, firstly, are we aware of it? Like, how do you become aware of that? And how do you know what to look for when you think, okay, this group here on these sets of roles seem to be just, below target consistently?
That sounds so so easy as a question, Hong, but the moment you start unpacking it, every organization, every different industry set, even the job family that you're hiring for could have different nuances. To keep it very simple, I think I always go back to one overarching aspect, and that's the hiring model or the TA delivery model altogether, the operating model, as I like to call it. And there are certain aspects to it. Find the bottleneck and you solve the problem. It's very easy to say, but that bottleneck can lie in very, in a number of different areas. If I just reduce it down for the sake of time to three, number one, look at your capacity. And capacity doesn't mean throw people at the problem. You spoke about elite teams performing high, etc. I think there's a genuine gap between TA leaders in the industry as well. So you have the real good TA leaders who don't just go and hire more recruiters the moment there's a problem in the hiring funnel. When you look at capacity, you can actually break it down, you can see what parts of your recruiters, sources, or even coordinators functions are going into real dumb activity. For example, repeatable tasks, etc. Where are they spending their time? So even the report, when you look at it, 40% of the time is spent on scheduling and logistics activities. Do you really want your TA partner that is being hired for a very high cost to spend their time in scheduling or rescheduling? So think about that. Think about what capacity can be used for higher level activities and value added activities rather than drilling down with their heads on scheduling activities. The second big topic is process. There are so many organizations when you enter the company and when you say, can you show me your hiring process on a board? I mean, I come from Miro, so it should always be on a board. And there is literally there I can tell you about 8 out of 10 companies, startups do not have their hiring process detailed out. And if you don't have your hiring process called out, you cannot really look at where the friction points are. It's not just about the process, it's about the flow. Where are the friction points? Where are the hands off happening? Look at basic aspects of where is the time and stage, where do you have the longest amount being spent? And that's where this whole activity of interviewer pushing back, interviewer not accepting that slot, etc., comes into play. And you see the delays happening. And last but not the least, this is something that I like to say is hiring is not a recruiting problem. Hiring ends up being a hiring manager lack of planning problem. And this is all about the alignment aspect, aligning with your hiring manager on what good looks like. So if I have to really drill it down and say, fix the flow and you win a hire. That's how you make the magic happen.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, Manjuri. I think we could kind of ask you to continue to lecture us about this because this is such a fascinating monologue. But actually wanted to bring in Arun on this. And Arun, you forgive me if I drop you in on this, but this is it, the thought sort of occurred to me to ask this question. I wanted to ask it. Do you, as kind of with an aggregate view of a platform, all of the sort of scheduling stuff that goes through Good Time, can you tell us like what is the right amount of time a team should be spending on the scheduling function? I mean, are you able to give us a percentage on that, or is that just too crude a thing to try and say?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of our customers, when they adopt Good Time, and there's a journey. At the beginning, they see some improvement, and then over time, they see some really drastic improvement, 80 to 90% reduction in time to schedule. And like Manjuri mentioned, scheduling is more of a transactional actions that you have to do to move the hiring forward. If that can be completely automated away and your people can really spend quality time with the candidates, that is the goal. So actually, with our new agent that's coming out, we are actually really shooting towards close to 0 minutes spent on scheduling at all. Even for last minute scheduling, where interviewers are, declining, and there are no other alternative interviewers that your hiring manager has given based on the historical data, we can actually negotiate. Our agent can negotiate with potential interviewers and being able to secure the resources before the interview happens so you don't have to reschedule with candidates. That is the goal that we are shooting towards the end of this year. So I would say right now, I think some of our most successful customers have reduced their time to schedule down from, let's say, 30 minutes down to one of our larger customers. They are in financial indexing type of industry, and they went from 30 minutes to 5 minutes. We're trying to get that down to 0. So we can just really give the time back to our TA team. So that's what we are shooting for, and our customers are seeing that.
I love the ambition, Arion, and 0 sounds amazing. I mean, to be honest, I mean, it's been a while since obviously I've been an operating recruiter, but back in the day, the scheduling aspect did take at least 20-30% of time. You're spent, especially if let's say you're managing as a recruiter, you're managing 15, 20, 25 requirements or whatever. That could be like dozens of people you have to coordinate every single day. And that is such a time sink. So that's crazy that we can get to a 0 figure. But you can all imagine that an AI agent always on, connected to everyone's calendar, able to interact simultaneously with every single relevant stakeholder can get us to that point.
But
Um,
I just want to add one thing. It doesn't mean recruiting coordinators as a job role, I think would go away. I think it's going to transition into what I call more of interview or hiring core orchestrator than just interview scheduling as their main job function. So we're seeing the job functions kind of evolve, but we don't see necessarily those jobs actually going away.
yeah, absolutely.
We
There's some
saw
really good.
that.
Go ahead, Manjuri.
Sorry, Hong. We actually, I mean, to Aaron's point there, we actually saw that happening. So when we implemented Good Time for Scheduling with OLX, my previous organization, we literally evolved the job role for coordinators into candidate experience specialists,
Mm.
and they became much more than that. And also they also then started enhancing the experience on the interviewer side because they were spending more time in prepping the interviewers and prepping the candidates in performing better, hence, ultimately increasing conversion rates of quality hires. So it's a huge, it's not a or question, coordinator or scheduling. It's more an and question here.
Yeah,
And
the key is where you distribute the time, isn't it? Like where the time is going to be safe, but where do you then reinvest that time? And if you can reinvest it like on the per candidate basis, spend like an extra 2 minutes per candidate, you're going to get a better candidate experience. It's as simple as that. Kyle Lagunas, let's bring you in on this. Let's imagine that the zero time to schedule. This happens, man. What does it what does it look like? I mean, in terms of sort of org redesign, workflow redesign, like how does it actually look like for an organization when you do have an agent that is operating in this way? And I presume some of the top sort of elite sort of performers in this report are probably quite advanced in getting the automation on stuff like the interview logistics.
I would say that the outcome has got to be something intentional. As we look at automating is not it's more straightforward. But it's what comes after that is most important for the teams that are winning versus the teams that are just doing more faster. This isn't just a volume game. I think that this is an opportunity where we are redefining efficiency. It's not just more with less. It's doing it better than we've ever done it before. That's what really efficient teams are doing. They're eliminating thrash. They're eliminating redundancy. They're optimizing their processes. And I think technology is a really important pillar of that. But we're really seeing that the companies that are doing the best are the ones who are taking those time savings and doing something with them. And so I think I'm really grateful to have leaders like Arian and Manjuri on who are talking about the roles that are feeling some of the nearer term impact that's in their coordinator function. The expectation that those resources, those people are being redeployed. That's got to be intentional. I think that if we look at how a lot of the business cases are being built for AI and automation, a lot of them are anchored in cost savings and cost avoidance, which is great. We want something that has defensible ROI. But I am noticing that if we don't have an answer to, and then we can do more human stuff, if that is not clearly defined, if there's not actually a path to that, a plan for that, the business is going to come back and be like, I don't really care that your recruiters aren't burnt out. I want to know what they're working on now. And so I think that there's got to be a lot of intentionality to make sure that the 0 days to hire doesn't mean zero recruiters enroll, because otherwise that really is the risk that's also here with the opportunity.
Yeah, brilliantly put, Kyle. Open question to everyone here. Has everyone heard of the term "keep what you kill"? Is this a phrase that's been familiar to everyone on the panel or in the watching along on the webinar? Keep what you kill.
I've heard
Obviously, a
eat
bit.
what you kill,
Eat
like
what
in the
you well,
consulting
you should certainly,
space.
yes, you should certainly do this. But it was a phrase that kind of I think it's come from gaming, but Aaron Levy, a CEO of Box, coined it. And he's one of these AI first type, where you got to automate everything. But he said, look, the way to align the human people to do this is to say to the individual functions, you keep what you kill. So in other words, if you are actually able to increase your efficiency, let's say you take your time to schedule from 30 minutes to zero, that money, that time doesn't just disappear back into the business. You get the time back and you get the time to reinvest it into those places where you need to go. And I think it's a
Like,
phrase that's really important for us in TA because we need to negotiate with the business that this is the path to AI
mm,
efficiency, powered efficiency, not just do it without intention, as you say, Kyle, because what happens is that the default is it'll just be absorbed into the back into the business, and yes, that would lead into the headcount cuts. So we have to be clearly articulating our position. Okay, let's move on. Interview scheduling, it seems fairly straightforward, but it's obviously more complicated. Ariane, I want to sort of tap into your sort of knowledge here because you're one of the ones that actually has educated me on how difficult this is. I wonder whether you could unpack the complexity of interview sort of coordination, because it's not just about booking interviews. It's like rescheduling. It's about are people in on time, all of the cascade sort of slowdowns that you have, or the hiring manager deciding to reschedule at this late moment, which actually creates like 3 hours worth of work, not 5 minutes worth of work. Can you just unpack a little bit of that for us and educate the audience also in terms of how all of this is impactful?
Totally, yeah. I think scheduling, to me, I make an analogy of scheduling is like a car. Like it's conveyor belt or car that gets you from A to B, getting a candidate from when they apply for a job to until they are hired. So the efficiency in that scheduling in the middle of the funnel is very, very important. According to our survey that we just did and the report that we just released, still recruiters are spending close to 40% of their time on scheduling, which is kind of mind-blowing at this age and time. About 35% that scheduling delays is really pulling them back. Limited interviewer pool, 35%. 32% said cancellations and rescheduled. 31% hiring manager availability. Actually, across all sectors that we've surveyed, hiring manager availability came up as one of the top three reasons why it's really putting delay in their process. And each cancellation, slow response, just like, kind of herding cats throughout the entire process can add easily multi-day delays. And that can also materially increase the candidate drop-off. In this age and time where really jobs are scarce and there are a lot more candidates, when the candidate, your perfect A plus candidate gets an offer from another place, they're not going to let that go. They're not going to just wait on it until, you push this person through the process. Most likely they will, take the safer bet, take the offer and run with that. So there's a really high chance of you losing really amazing, perfect candidates if you have slow, delayed in the process. Another thing that really complicates scheduling is interview panel availability. Unless you're hiring low skill, extremely high volume type of roles, typically for corporate roles, you have panels, you have 7 or 8 interviewers that have to participate and provide opinion, provide like, making sure that they're load balanced, they're not fatigued, they're trained, they are available, all that. Actually doing that calendar Tetrising is, it takes a lot of time. That's why technology is there to be able to do that way more efficiently. And also rescheduled and cancellation really add time. Another thing that people actually don't think a lot about when it comes to scheduling is also the scheduling stalled until the scorecards have been completed and the feedback has been provided so that you can initiate the next interview schedule. So removing that delay there is really important. So actually a lot of respondents mentioned delays in completing scorecards and also slow hiring manager decisions on whether to move this candidate proceed to the next step or not. That also is part of scheduling challenges. And then another thing that actually came up in the report also, and not a lot of people think that this is part of scheduling challenge and that logistics challenge is actually also communication. So, if you're hiring typical corporate roles that are, people who are sitting in front of computers all day, they can probably check emails from time to time throughout the day. But if you're hiring non-desk workers, Also, communication just via email is really difficult. So surprisingly, I was very surprised by this. 0% of respondents say that they avoid SMS and WhatsApp altogether. So everyone, actually, including people who are hiring corporate roles, are now by default using SMS and WhatsApp to speed up the scheduling process, speed up the overall interview logistics process, which was actually pretty surprising. And also about 40% of respondents said that they use centralized texting platform to text with the candidates using SMS and WhatsApp. Also, so the communication also is a component of scheduling challenges. And there are millions more layered. If I were to peel the onion, there's a lot more to it, but those are the ones that came up at the top in the report.
Yeah, obviously, folks, read the report. Loads of great juice in there. And Ariane, I do need to ask you a few more ratio type questions. I don't know why this is in my head now, but is there such like is it like a market wide benchmark for interview rescheduling? Because how do we know we have like a ridiculous hiring manager that constantly does this? Is there like okay a number we can say that this is like totally this guy's totally above and beyond the what is a market average?
Totally. Yeah, so I go to a lot of EBRs with our customers. Some customers are challenged with something that's outside of their control, and their reschedule rate is 50% plus. And it's so hard to function as a TA team if your interviewers or hiring managers just keep on declining. And that's just kind of within the culture. I think they mentioned that, hey, their company culture is, hey, if you're gonna decline, decline early. But that actually turned into more of the message of decline all the time. Yeah. Uh, so they're grappling with 50% reschedule. It's really hard to hire that way, especially also if you're hiring for very, very hard to go by type of role like AI engineers. AI, any roles are now in extreme high demand and they'll get an offer really quickly elsewhere. If your interviewers keep on declining, it can easily add sometimes up to a week into your time to hire.
Yeah.
And also, actually, I have a customer that I did an EBR for last year. Their reschedule rate is less than 5%, which is also unheard of. I haven't seen that type of number either, but they mentioned that they had a huge, I wouldn't say a fight, but a good conversation with the hiring team and really got their buy-in to be accountable for being there for the interviews and not declining. So the range I've seen is from 5 to 50%, but I think a good benchmark would be 10%, less than 10% would be good to shoot for.
Yeah, this is great, by the way, folks. If you're struggling with your stakeholder management and so on, being able to establish a benchmark or a baseline, should I say, in terms of what some of these metrics might be, I think this is a powerful way to negotiate behavioral change. So yeah, that's great stuff. Love to see that type of data. Okay, how do we quantify the business cost of this, Manjuri? I mean, you've done that stakeholder management, and you've had to change behavior or negotiate change of behavior from the business. How do you actually sort of put a number behind the number to say, okay, this is actually costing us in the bottom line?
Yeah, I think, Hung, before that, just to your point as well there, some of us and a lot of us in TA or even other business leadership positions, we think that if we bolt on anything that comes with AI or automation, our problems are solved. That's something that doesn't happen. So we have to fix the culture. There's so much about the culture that we have to look at the opportunity cost to the leaders. So much so I've been in organizations like OLX where we delivered 6,000 hires in a year, including feet on street hire. With Zalando, it used to be around 700 plus hires in a year just for technology alone. And if you don't set those rules of engagement from the get-go, and that too from the C-suite or the leadership. So for example, hiring has to be prerogative. We say that talent density is super important for organizations today, especially for SaaS organizations. So that hiring part has to be priority for your hiring managers. If the hiring manager is not blocking, say, 2 interview slots in a week or a decision slot in a week, then that that role shouldn't be in hiring. That means it's not priority for them. And I think these hardline requests and expectations should come from the top, the C-suite leader, and then kind of drive it down. Because when you ask me about the business value, it's pretty obvious. And now that I'm uh, working with a GTM organization, there's direct dollar value that we see. For example, if you talk about an account executive that is a vacant seat, and if we are taking time to hire that account executive, and the time to fill or time to hire is being increased, of course, just imagine if you have a 1 million per year ARR for this particular account executive. Just as an example, if we assume that at the cost of that vacant seat for 6 weeks, because we cannot put a book of business on that seat, at the cost of the fact, like Arun said, you'll have a top candidate that might drop out because of another offer. And today we know for AI SaaS companies, GTM roles are in high demand. That top candidate might just drop out, and that'll be a lost candidate in the flow. So example of a 1 million ARR could really result in losing $172 to $175,000. That's the cost. This is the opportunity cost. This is the lost cost that you have. If you show that to your CFO, it gives you the permission right away to go ahead and experiment automating your scheduling, automating your logistics in the flow. But like I said, you have to start with the culture. It has to be priority. We've even gone till the length of in one of our organizations, Hong, to put interviewing in manager goals or interviewer goals. It's an aspirational activity. You're adding on to the talent density of an organization. So you're giving that time, and you need to be recognized for that activity. And unless you do that, you cannot set these roles. And your recruiters will be on that hamster wheel of scheduling, rescheduling, going back, calendar matching, and talk about executive hires where you have to deal with probably 7 EAs across your C-suite in matching that panel. So it's horrendous, and it has a real dollar value of $150,000 to $200,000 that you'll lose.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, Manjuri. I also think all of that rescheduling you do erodes your own morale, doesn't it? I mean, your team gets sort of your morale of the team gets eroded when these things happen. So you've got to try and eliminate that from the get-go. Brilliant stuff. And I love the fact that, if you hiring manager, if they're not prepared to block out interview time, then you have to deprioritize the role to a manager that is prepared to do that. So that creates a bit of competitive pressure internally. Okay, good stuff. Kyle, you've turned yourself. We're going to turn you into a futurist here. I beg your pardon. But let's take the future view on this. Modern scheduling experience. What does it look like from a candidate POV, from a recruiter POV, and from a hiring manager POV? So everything is working as it should in 2026 and beyond. From a candidate side, how does it look? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, let me look into my crystal ball. Look, I would say that it goes way beyond scheduling. This is just the area that we are innovating now that I think has the greatest opportunity for some early wins. But as we look at the interview process itself, as we look at the talent lifecycle, we get into a lot more opportunity. I would say that it is highly individualized and well orchestrated. That is what an excellent candidate experience is going to look like. Whether I'm actively looking for a job and applying everywhere I can think of because I have bills to pay, or whether I'm being sourced as a passive candidate and don't really know if I care to pay that close attention to what's going on. I think that in either of those instances, the employer is going to want to engage me in the right way, the right time. And yeah, I expect it as a candidate. I'm getting agentic AI is literally all over the place, right? Like, remember, matching and scoring started in Amazon and Netflix, and I'm really interested to see how agentic and generative AI becomes a core experience of consumer lives. They're gonna apply that to the candidate experience as well. For recruiters, we got to superpower these people. I mean, honestly, I thought that the volume of work during COVID was a lot. The volume of work right now and the scrutiny of that work, those like two things at the same time, is creating a real pressure cooker for recruiters. And I expect that the AI solutions that are going to win Arian, you're here now. Is that we are going to make sure that we prioritize those people and empower those people. We need to help them move fast. Need to help them move with confidence, and we also need to help them really up their game. I think being hands-on with candidates, yes, but being like real, meaningful advisors to the business, which is hard, requires consistency. And then for hiring managers, look, we got to get like they've got work to do. And hiring is not like, I mean, I don't know how many hiring managers have a whole lot of experience hiring, right? A lot of times they don't. And so I think that I would expect agentic AI to also co-pilot more for those folks. Make sure that they are prepared, that they are ready, and that they are also moving forward with confidence. And so they got to close a lot of the loop. I think that's a big challenge is like you get the hour interview and then they're on to the rest of their job. And then we're waiting for a week for feedback. I think that closing those loops is going to be really, really important. So I would say categorically, individualization, augmentation, and orchestration. Those are going to be the three major things that I think we'll expect to varying degrees as we look across those different user personas.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And what has to go away, Kyle? Like what is in 2026 unacceptable? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I love this one. Yeah, I think it's just like to just focus entirely on efficiency as a cost-cutting exercise. The most efficient experiences are not always the cheapest. I mean, if you look at some of the most like popular consumer experiences, like Apple, as an example, you get the new iPhone, and it comes in this beautiful box, and it's like the unboxing is this incredible experience. And look, everyone has copied that. They were the first ones to pioneer it, right? It's actually extremely expensive packaging. There's a lot of experiential design that went into just how do I receive that product, right? I think that that's going to be something that we really need to consider this year. It's not do more with less. It's do it better than we ever have before, which doesn't necessarily mean doing it like absolutely cheaply, like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, there's a concept called what is the right degree of friction, and it's usually not zero. In most
Mhm.
situations, it's usually not zero. There is a degree of friction that it feels right from an experience point of view for you to get. Okay, really good. Let's stay with you, Carl, because you kind of moved into the we've moved you into I've moved you into the future here, so we're gonna have to stay there for a little bit.
Yeah.
You talked about agentic AI, AI agents. Moving from something that probably started this year, it was still a little bit of an urban myth, wasn't it? Like we saw some automation, we saw some things going on. Then suddenly everyone's saying, actually, this is an agent now, and they're prepared to go sort of to argue the
Yeah.
toss. And suddenly, yes, you have AI that can actually do the work and actually make some decisions and actually take a lot of the labor away. Very, very interesting. But let's do some like crystal clear definitions here. How do we talk about the difference between, let's say, basic automation and what would be an AI agent? And as a follow-on question to that, how does the human sort of interact differently with those two types of AI?
Yeah. So I think the easiest way is to look at how the solutions are designed. I don't mean the products, but like as you go to implement these in your organization. So for automation, it is rules, mapping, process stage by stage. If this, then that, repeat. They're programmed by, to date, been programmed by humans, but I think that agentic can program some automation now too. But it follows a logic tree, and it's usually binary. You might have tertiary and some exceptions. Anybody who has built a campaign for in a CRM or otherwise, it's building out some logic there. I would say automation is like moves in a single direction, and it might loop back, but it's still a part of that same process. Whereas agentic doesn't require as much hands-on configuration in that way. It's very good at looking at a series of processes. It's very good at looking at where it's starting, where it's going, and where you're trying to get to, and closing those gaps itself. And I think that's both exciting. We've seen how that has scaled a lot of operating capacity for teams, but it's also concerning because actually, I think Manjuri, you were talking about documented processes earlier. I don't like we are cutting these things loose because we are under operational pressure. But I don't know a lot of teams that have like gone through and done a bunch of process cleaning and optimizing. I don't know a bunch of people who have looked at their SOPs and made sure that we are really doing things the right way. We're just doing more of it, which is why I'm tracking two trends this year, which is decision defensibility. We really want to look at how decisions are being made in people processes, going from why we are going from point A to point B and then maybe looping back. We're really delving into mining those processes for opportunities for more data-driven decision making, for reduced redundancies, et cetera. We're deploying these instead in environments where we just need to get to the outcome. And it's been a bad habit of HR and talent teams for a long time. I was guilty of it too. We want to buy a solution. I really need the magic wand. That's why it's so easy for us to get sold the shiny objects, because we kind of need them. And what we're finding is that in this, and the AI age came on quickly. Like we've been hearing about AI for a long time, where we're like, it's machine learning and automation. Like this has happened so fast. And HR and talent leaders themselves, I think, are getting caught like out in like, I think, not quite ready, ahead of their skis, I think, where it turns out that we can't just have our nerds in HR ops or talent ops figure this thing out and make it work. At the very beginning of evaluating what tools I'm going to bring in, or how I'm going to achieve the strategic outcomes in front of me, I am needing to think about AI not as a technology, but as a catalyst and as an enablement tool. And so I'm not going to just say, let's go buy this and buy this and buy this. I'm going to say, what are we trying to achieve this year or this month? What are the problems that are in front of me and how can we solve them? Some of it's going to be people, some of it's going to be process, and some of it's going to be AI. And I think we need to understand how AI works in all of that in order to find out the right solution for us. I still see a lot of folks going straight to the tool, going right out to market to buy. And yeah, I think that is, I'm a little concerned about it. I think we have limited credibility calories to burn, and I want to make sure that we are bringing the right solutions into the organization, especially when our resources are so precious. We can't be seen getting anything not quite right. Even we really need to find the right tools. Um, so yeah, it's changing the game. It's changing the game in, I think, in an important way. I talk about AI as a catalyst a lot because it is actually, like, as you think about it in a chemical way, it really is forcing a change that we have needed in a lot of different ways. It is catalyzing some growth and evolution for our functions. I'm happy to see it. This is going to be a bumpy ride for the next year.
It is a bumpy ride indeed, but Arian Moon, how do we make sure it's smoother? Like, what are the guardrails that we need to put into place to ensure this outcome of, what, we're just going to grab this tool, going to go fast, but then end up inadvertently sacrificing candidate experience, hiring quality, maybe even changing fundamental things about how we want to try and bring people into the organization inadvertently, like, because we've got this tool now and the tool is suddenly changing the way out in which we operate. Do you have any thoughts on this, Arian? Oh, Arian, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I said guardrails are very important when it comes to utilizing AI and any type of technology. So super important that you look at vendors that have really high bar and high bar for data security, privacy, as well as really kind of philosophy around how they build and use AI. That's very important. We've kind of seen some, recent events where that became a big deal. So I think really scrutinizing vendors' bar on AI and data security is very, very important. Um, and also, I think when it comes to really making the hiring decision, it really has to be a human decision. At the end of the day, we are hiring humans. We're not hiring another, AI robot. We are hiring a human. So I think the hiring decision has to be really made by humans. And like, Kylie mentioned that the decision has to be, or the rationale behind the decision has to be very well documented, very consistent, and so on. AI can assist and be a co-pilot in terms of the decision making, gathering all the summaries, gathering feedback, and taking away the transactional work that you have to do to get to the decision point. I think AI can definitely take care of that and be a co-pilot on that. but I think the hiring decision must be definitely made by humans. But also at the same time, I want to kind of like spin this question on its head and really think about it in a way that kind of like AI is, I think one of our co-founders mentioned, it's like, AI could be like the internet, right? When the internet came out into the market, everyone was somewhat scared, like the social media, internet, and so on. It's like when you're tasting sushi for the first time, you feel like you're gonna get a food poisoning from it and you're scared. But then it just becomes part of your normal diet. You get comfortable with it and so on. I think AI, we are kind of going through that transition, and AI, it's really, I love Hong what you mentioned, and Kyle, you mentioned the AI could be a trigger and really could be a way for our TA function to evolve, and could be an opportunity where we can attain all the three E's that everyone talks about: effectiveness, efficiency, and experience. AI can give you the efficiency. AI can be the co-pilot for better experience. And AI can help you make better, more effective hiring decisions. People always talk about how you cannot attain all three. I think AI can actually help TA team achieve all three if it's used the right way, with the right processes and right way of thinking about AI. So yes, there are guardrails that are important, but also I feel like AI is a huge opportunity for us to achieve something that we've never achieved before.
Yeah, and we have to keep that optimistic view. We cannot allow the guardrail to become a barricade to progress. We have the end goal. We know where we've got to do it. Maybe we want to put some guardrails either side, but we have to barrel on forward and have the courage to take some shots. Okay, let's move on to the last topic. Because AI usage, this is not just sort of recruiters and employees using AI. I think 2025 last year was probably the year when the concept of the AI-enabled candidate really came into the public consciousness. And we have just this spectrum of usage of AI, from what we can all probably agree would be legitimate use of, research and sort of improving your application, all of that on one side, and then all the way to the other, which is fraudulent behavior, using deep fakes, different identities, and using all of the tools that are available now in general population to really try and penetrate into organizations for whatever malevolent means there may be. How do we sort of you know, the report is probably worth diving into just a little bit here, Arun. Pulling out of the research we got there from the survey data, where was the priority of kind of securitizing the hiring funnel? What are the main things that our people are saying about candidate fraud from the people we surveyed?
Definitely. I think candidate fraud it wasn't really a prominent aspect in our hiring report until 2025 even. 2026 is like right at the top. So it definitely became a main risk that now all TA teams have to deal with. So really Gen AI it's really changed it turned signals into noise. So resumes, portfolios, or any sort of written answers, even the interviews themselves can be easily polished and fully generated by AI. So all candidates they seem more customized, more stronger, and more kind of personalized for the particular role that they're applying for. So there's misalignment between their true skill sets as well as how they show up in their application or even interviews. So it's definitely come up quite a bit. The report also shows that fake or AI misrepresented candidates have become really number one anticipated challenges for 2026 and on. And that's actually become even a bigger challenge than lack of qualified talent, which has always been a huge aspect for TA teams until up to 2025. So, and also what that means is it's translating to more scrutiny throughout the middle of the funnel. You have to be kind of checking for the identity, not just at a particular time in the pipeline, you actually have to check for identity throughout the entire pipeline to see if you are dealing with a real human and also whether their answers are correct and true to their skill set and so on. So it really changes the way we run our hiring process. And another thing is because of the Gen AI and the ease of being able to apply for jobs, and you cannot fault candidates for using AI because TA teams are also using AI, so they're applying for hundreds of jobs at the same time. So the volume of work that's coming towards TA team has like quadrupled, and that's pretty obvious in the report. So really, the kind of two things is the signal kind of turning into noise, and also the volume is extremely high, and it also is triggering the changes in the hiring process to continuously check for the identity and authenticity of the candidates.
Yeah, really interesting. And it will probably change sourcing strategies as well, right? Can you recruit in a quieter way,
Yeah.
for instance, if you know that advertising is going to expose you to a large volume of candidates you can't handle? Maybe there's another route to market without being so public about it. So yeah, I think lots of change happening. It's a lot more work, but at the same time, it is actually more work for recruiters. And I know that's the same phrase, but there's a positive spin on that because the demand for people to deal with this should kind of should be there. What type of looking at a metrics or a dashboard, Manjuri Sina, where if you take in the high level view in this, where would you be able to look at this and think, hang on, maybe here's a point where fraud risk is coming. Is there a point in sort of the traditional KPI funnel where you're thinking, hang on, this looks like there's a problem there because maybe misuse of AI from candidate side, perhaps it's outright fraud. What kind of numbers or things should we look for from a metrics point of view?
I think Hung, around looking at your general KPIs on where when you suddenly see a pattern of a particular population or a particular demographic or experience, etc., that starts converting in the first part of the application process or starts going through the interviewing process, etc. And those are signals. Or you look at patterns in resumes, probably a couple of colleges, universities, etc., that are known to be fraudulent. And interestingly, having experience in hiring in India as well, this is not a new challenge. We used to face this earlier as well. It was more physical than digital on figuring out which are the fraudulent in universities, colleges, etc. So what are the patterns that come up that will come into play, etc. It's interesting that this is pretty much caught us off guard, and it is bearing out in the open our lack of preparedness for this entire activity that we call as hiring. Number one, because we don't align on competencies that we check. We are literally basing our decisions on that conversation or on those 4 or 5 conversations. So I would kind of foresee that we are plugging in checks and balances around number one, like Arun said, on identity checks throughout the process. I'm sure there'll be somewhere that we'll have to start checking biometrics like we do for other very important activities or facial recognition that starts happening in these places as well. I remember you putting a post on LinkedIn talking about will we have more on-site interviews? I do see that there'll be some kind of a check coming into play for high-level roles on some kind of an on-site interface, maybe in that country's office or a third-party assessment or something like that, as and when we kind of keep on moving ahead. Then we have these similarity checks that tools like Codility used to do. And that those really work. And you also have AI tools that check whether it has been written by your resume is written by a machine or not. I think before all that, organizations, number one, have to start defining what is acceptable. Because like we are using AI, candidates are using AI. So if I tell a candidate, hey, this is fraudulent, they will say, where is it mentioned that it's fraudulent? Where does it say I can't use this assisted interviewing process, etc.? So I think we have to start calling it out and sharing with candidates what is acceptable, what is not. And then second, we have to have our own safeguards. That means really tightening the competencies needed, the functional aspects needed. If you're looking at leadership principles, tightening a decision-making process. If we are making a decision in a group, in a hiring committee, etc., I think these are things that can better safeguard us than having a seven-step process with different tools. To be very sure on what we are checking. Something that most organizations still don't do well is the first probation period check as well. That means what is your performance in the first or the second month or the third month? And this goes back to who did we hire, unless we have six of Soham Parikhs on the on the company list. But yeah, those are some of the tactics to deal with such fraudulent activities.
Soham Parak was great in probation. That's his problem. Like he was like a hero first 3 months, and then he'd just drop off because he'd
Yeah,
get another job. Anyway,
true.
Google Soham Parak if you wanna know more about him. Kalagunas, let's bring this home. I mean, yes, we should put checks in. Yes, we should. Obviously, we've got an absolute responsibility for the health and safety of the company. That's very clear. But doesn't this mean like tons of friction? Like, are we saying to the candidates, you must now have to tolerate extra friction because of this circumstance? And I kind of compare this to like airports security.
Oh
Back in the
God.
day, once upon a time, there was no need for even a passport. You could just board a plane and go. But now, obviously, this is not something we would accept. We kind of accepted the larger degree of friction. Do we just have to say to candidates, you got to lump it? What do you think?
No, I don't think so. We still have to continue to find the balance, and especially because, like I dropped in the chat, the two trends I'm tracking are decision quality and decision defensibility. As we look at some of the tools that already exist, the early use case or the early solutions for detecting potential candidate fraud are looking at things like the IP address, the age of the email address. These are technical things that are discoverable. I'm hearing from talent leaders that the volume of false negatives is too high to be useful. And so I think that it is going to be something that we are going to have to continue to balance. This will be something, this problem is not going to go away. I do think the only solution is in-person interviews, to be honest. But I'm not going back to an office. So we are going to have to find some sort of balance, but it's not just whether it's going to create friction for employees, it's also friction for employers. They also can't wait. That is why this is such a vulnerable place, a vulnerable point, is like they need the talent and they need it now. Every hire matters right now, more than it has in the past. And so I think that solution providers are really going to have to think about how to solve for the candidate experience and the hiring businesses priorities. They're going to have to solve for that problem, I think, more than the employers themselves are.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Lots to do, lots to think about, but it's lots of work for us to get stuck into. This is not a boring space, folks, if you're in talent acquisition. However, we have come to the end of the conversation here, so I want to thank everyone for contributing so much wisdom and insight. This obviously could have been a much longer webinar, maybe set up for part two, really. Thanks everyone for joining and listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you, Kyle Lagunas, for your great chat. Manjuri Sina, Arya Moon, wonderful panel. I think we're about to get kicked off like in a hard stop, so I've got to rush this ending. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you sharing the time. We will send you a recording of all of this, and of course the link to the report. Make sure you do read it. It's one of the best I've read that sort of I say this year, but it probably will be one of the best this year in any case, all the way through. Do avail yourself to it, and yeah, enjoy your recruiting, folks. It's going to be a really interesting year, in the year of the horse, I believe. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.